welcome to my channel. My name is Sasa. I make sewing, cooking, and cosplay videos. In this video, I'll show how I made my Mario hat. I found this pattern in a secondhand shop. When I was looking for a tutorial on how to make this hat, most of the other versions are the circle method, where you cut two big circles. One of them has another circle, a smaller circle inside of it. However, I didn't like the shape, so I'm going with this kind of style hat instead. So I made a quick sample out of some scrap fabric just to check the size and how it looks. I modified the front brim. I made it smaller. I did a few sewing tests to see how I want to do the seams. I decided to put fleece on the inside to give it more shape and body so the hat won't be too floppy. So for the brim, I use thick interfacing, which makes it more stiff. It's a paper-like reinforcement, and I cut two of those. I baste the interfacing to the fabric. With right sides together, I pin the two pieces of the brim together. So I sew the brim together. I trim off the excess and I clip the curves. I flip the brim to the right side out, and with the help of a chopstick, I push out the curve. And then I iron both sides, and I baste the opening shut. So here's the pattern for all the pieces. There's a front, a side, and a back, but pretty much the kind of triangular shape is all the same for each piece. If I were to make this again, I would probably make it a little bit shorter. So at the bottom of the hat will be elastic. So in order to reduce the bulk there, I'm cutting off a bit of the fleece at the bottom edge. So I baste the fleece to each of the main pieces. So starting with the center front, I sew the seam with a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. This pattern puts a seam at the center front, but since I didn't want that because the little circle K, I wanted it to be in the center without it being on a seam, so I rotated the hat a little bit. But since it's a round circle, it doesn't make a big difference. So I trim the bulk on the seams, and then I iron the seams open. So I sew a side to one of the front pieces and I sew one side to the back pieces. So you'll have two pieces of fabric that are 3 triangles each, and you sandwich those together to sew all the way around at the top. Since the center top is very bulky, it makes it difficult to sew and makes it difficult to line up. So actually what I should have done, the fleece, I should have trimmed it off at the top of the tips as well as the bottom. So if you're making this, make sure you do that. You don't make the same mistake. I wasn't going to redo it, so I just left it as is. You could also hide it with a button. I use regular polyester lining fabric. You sew it the same way as the main part, and this part I'm just sewing the U now. And to line it up, you look at inside and I mark a pin to help you keep that center point. Since the fabric is thinner, it's easier to line up the center. Make sure you leave an opening in one of the seams so that you can flip the hat right side out. I fold the brim in half to find the center point, and I also fold the hat in half to find the center point in between the two front seams. And then I pin from that center point, and then I baste it to the hat. So I'm using white felt for the center circle because it does not fray, and you can cut a nice round circle. You could do things like fabric paint or a different kind of fabric if you want to applicate that. Look in your house for any cups or lids that you can use for a different size of circles. One layer of white was a little bit semi-transparent for my taste, so I doubled up the white. There are two styles you can do. You can cut out the letter, or you can have the letter on top. You can pick whatever style you like. I did some sewing tests to figure out how it would look, so I decided to sew through all the layers, both the white and the red. The other option is if you sew the red K to the white thing before you sew it to the hat, and then the puffiness look is a bit different. You can fabric glue the letter and the circle down instead of sewing if you prefer that. With the right sides together, I clip the lining to the hat. So I sew all the way around and I line up the seams and I make sure they're all flat. I clip the seam, especially where the brim is. And then through the opening in the lining, I flip the hat right side out. I iron it flat. I start from the first seam closest to the brim. And I'm sewing with a 1.5 seam allowance. And you want to make sure that your elastic can fit through. So right now I'm making the channel for the elastic. With the help of a safety pin, I thread the elastic through the opening in the lining and into the channel that we just sewed. I sew one end down of the elastic to the hat so that it doesn't move. And then I place a pin on the other side of the elastic. I try on the hat and I adjust the tightness. Once I'm happy with how tight it is, I sew down the other end. The last step is to sew the lining opening shut. If my videos and tutorials helped you create something, please tag me. I would love to see your work. Please check out my channel for playlists on cooking, sewing, cosplay, and other tutorials. You can support me by buying me an online coffee, which is a donation of increments by $3, or you can buy anything from my Etsy shop. It's all handmade by me. I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. I hope you have fun with your projects. Bye bye!